Welcome to another in our series of questions from the Old Testament. Our question today comes from the Old Testament prophet Jeremiah. In Jeremiah chapter 6 and verse 15, we read, "Were they ashamed when they committed abomination?" And to give our question of the day a context, we're going to be reading verses 1 through 21 of Jeremiah chapter 6. Beginning in verse 1, "Flee for safety, O people of Benjamin, from the midst of Jerusalem. Blow the trumpet in Tekoa and raise a signal in Beth-Haccherem, for disaster looms out of the north and great destruction. The lovely and delicately bred I will destroy, the daughter of Zion. Shepherds with their flocks shall come against her. They shall pitch their tents around her. They shall pasture, each in his place. Prepare war against her. Arise and let us attack at noon. Woe to us, for the day declines, for the shadows of evening lengthen. Arise and let us attack by night and destroy her palaces. For thus says the Lord of hosts, cut down her trees, cast up a siege mound against Jerusalem. This is the city that must be punished. There is nothing but oppression within her. As a well keeps its water fresh, so she keeps fresh her evil. Violence and destruction are heard within her. Sickness and wounds are ever before me. Be warned, O Jerusalem, lest I turn from you in disgust, lest I make you a desolation, an uninhabited land. Thus says the Lord of hosts, they shall glean thoroughly as a vine, the remnant of Israel. Like a grape gatherer, pass your hand again over its branches. To whom shall I speak and give warning, that they may hear? Behold, their ears are uncircumcised, they cannot listen. Behold, the word of the Lord is to them an object of scorn. They take no pleasure in it. Therefore, I am full of the wrath of the Lord. I am weary of holding it in. Pour it out upon the children in the street and upon the gatherings of young men also. Both husband and wife shall be taken, the elderly and the very aged. Their houses shall be turned over to others, their fields and wives together. For I will stretch out my hand against the inhabitants of the land, declares the Lord. For from the least to the greatest of them, everyone is greedy for unjust gain, and from prophet to priest, everyone deals falsely. They have healed the wound of my people lightly, saying, Peace, peace, when there is no peace. Were they ashamed when they committed abomination? No, they were not at all ashamed. They did not even know how to blush. Therefore they shall fall among those who fall. At the time that I punish them, they shall be overthrown, says the Lord. Thus says the Lord, stand by the roads and look and ask for the ancient paths, where the good way is, and walk in it, and find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk in it. I set watchmen over you, saying, pay attention to the sound of the trumpet. But they said, we will not pay attention. Therefore, hear, O nations, and know, O congregation, what will happen to them. Hear, O earth, behold, I am bringing disaster upon this people, the fruit of their devices, because they have not paid attention to my words. And as for my law, they have rejected it. What use to me is frankincense that comes from Sheba, or sweet cane from a distant land? Your burnt offerings are not acceptable, nor your sacrifices pleasing to me. Therefore, thus says the Lord, behold, I will lay before this people stumbling blocks against which they shall stumble. Fathers and sons together, neighbor and friend shall perish. In the 1970s, a program was developed to help at-risk teens avoid a life of crime and incarceration. It was called Scared Straight. It is still in existence today with the same intention. The premise is to take what were seemingly hardened youth who feared nothing and show them what life was like behind prison bars by taking them inside and letting real prisoners intimidate them. For many, this lesson was enough to convince and deter them from a life of crime. Although they were seemingly hardened and unflinching in their fearless nature, coming face to face with reality sobered them up to realize they were on the wrong road. I watched the award-winning 1978 documentary on the program, and it scared me, and I wasn't even a criminal. Several years ago, I read an article written by a court official that told of brash criminals that scoffed at the system that sought to bring an end to their life of crime. They mocked law enforcement, district attorneys, judges, and juries, thinking themselves above the law. However, there was a moment in time that brought it all into reality, and it was one of two sounds that convinced them that their life of ease was up. It was either the bang of the judge's gavel or the sound of prison doors closing with that ear-splitting bang. It was then that all of their bravado fled. I've watched a show called The People's Court off and on since it aired some 4 decades ago. I saw a pattern in which the party to whom the judgment went against never seemed to admit guilt, even after the verdict, in spite of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. They almost always maintained that they were in the right, and that it was because of bias or some other flagrant act that justice was not swayed in their favor. Most of us are not that brazen and often apologetic and sorrowful when we commit wrong. Perhaps it is a built-in barometer, so to speak, of right and wrong. For sure, we don't like to be wrong, and most certainly don't like to be caught at committing that wrong. In our question for the day, God asked the question of Judah, which is really a statement of their brazen attitude towards sin. This is not the only time that he will accuse them of such behavior. In Jeremiah chapter 3 and verse 3 we read, "Therefore the showers have been withheld, and there has been no latter rain. You've had a harlot's forehead. You refuse to be ashamed." And again in Jeremiah 8:12, were they ashamed when they committed abomination? No, they were not ashamed, nor did they know how to blush. Therefore they shall fall among those who fall in the time of their punishment. They shall be cast down, says the Lord. And again in Jeremiah 5:3, "O Lord, are not your eyes on the truth? You have stricken them, but they have not grieved. You have consumed them, but they have refused to receive correction. They have made their faces harder than rock. They refuse to return." What would you call someone who refuses to feel remorse, sorrow, or even shame at the wrong they commit?